Anyone who has touched that, even for a short period of time, can never be ever dissatisfied. There's supreme satisfaction. And that the Vedas have described as Satchitananda. Now, Satchitananda is a three-syllabled word. Sat, Chit and Ananda. We're not looking at how to go there. That's tomorrow's discussion. We're looking at things, facts. Now, if Satchitananda is made of Sat, Chit and Ananda, what does the first syllable Sat mean? The truth? Yeah, we usually say the truth. But Sat means much more than the simple word truth. It means that which is real, as opposed to what we think is real. Now, we think something is real, but if you, on close examination, it turns out to be not so real. And if there is something that, however close you examine, still remains real, now that is Sat. And the good news is that our inner essence is Sat, the reality. How? This world that we live in, the world that we see, is based on the impressions that we receive through our sense organs. Yeah. Do I really see Jennifer? No. I see the image presented to my mind, or my brain, if you want to call it, that comes through my five senses of sight, hearing, taste, touch. Anything else that I missed? Smell. If you sprayed a good perfume, like, I know this is Jennifer. So, I'm just using you, sorry. So, I'm just using your name as a guinea pig for the experimental purpose. So, this is how I interpret this word. In the Sanskrit text, it's called nama, the name. And when the nama is there, you associate it with the form, which is rupa. Nama, rupa. This is the world we live in. Nama and rupa. Which is quite normal. But what I'm trying to say is that the impressions received through our five senses, we are discussing Sat now, reality, could be quite illusion. Could be not as real as we think they are. I'll give you an example. Every morning, we see the sunrise, right? Every evening, we see the sunset. Except in Finland, I didn't see it set at all. Anyway, generally, you see the sunrise and you see the sunset. Now, even as young student in the high school will tell you that the sun neither rises nor sets. It's the world that moves, the earth that moves. But what do you see with your eyes? The sun is rising, so how much can we trust the sense organs that we have? The instruments of perception that we have are very limited. We really cannot trust them. And what we call a rational mind, which hopes to understand the world and understand oneself, is based on the data provided by these five senses, which are by themselves imperfect. If I had more time, we could have sat down and analyzed something, like a solid piece of wood, and figure out that it's still only the impressions of our senses, but we really don't know how it exists. It exists, of course. But what we think it exists as, as oneness, is that sometimes we believe things so much that we behave like asses. So what I mean to say is that the so-called rational design and the rational blueprint with which we live, saying that I'm a perfectly rational human being and so on, is based entirely on the impressions received through our five senses of perception. They're called the Pancha Indriyas in yogic terms. And these are often not accurate, or in some cases even unreal. So how much perfect can our image of an object be which is based on such imperfect perceptions? Because the brain has no other way to work out a definition except based on the impressions received. And the data received is imperfect. Your image must also be imperfect. It cannot be perfect. Although we'd like to think it's perfect, because all of us generally have the same kind of instruments of perception, therefore we look at everything in the same way. It may not be so, may not be so. I'm not saying it is not so, I'm saying may not be so. Okay, I'm looking at you. I have a pair of eyes with which I was born, which have convex lenses on. Right? My eyes have a retina and they have what is optics we have? Convex lens. All of us have roughly the same. So I see you as in a certain form, in a certain shape, and I believe this is the shape. I think this is my reality, Sat. Imagine a creature like a housefly, common housefly. It's born with a different set of eyes, a different apparatus. It's called the compound eye. Little eyes put together. How will it see you? May not be the same as I see you. So if I say that what I am seeing is right and the housefly says what I am seeing is right, who is right? Nobody is right and everybody is right. Because it's based on our impression. So we have no way to define this earth we live in and also ourselves in absolute terms. We can only say relatively. According to me, this is real. Cannot be other than that. Suppose I was born with compound eyes, suppose. Born. How would I see you? She's smiling, I would see 5 faces smiling. So I would see one person like Ravan, 10 heads. Hopefully, I don't know, I've not got into the fly and looked. If I do that, I'll know the perspective of the fly, how we look. Or the elephant for that matter. So, what I'm trying to say is the world that is presented to us as real is actually relative, based on our instruments of perception. So the question asked here is, ultimately, what is the reality? Not these, let's look at it in a different way now. We think that we communicate with each other, right? I hope we do. Now the fact is that you have an image about me. You might have read my autobiography or something. So you have an image about me. And I see you and I form an image about you, especially if I know you for a longer time. So when we say we communicate, your image about me and my image about you are communicating. We are not communicating. Our real communication is kind of covered by the image we have created about each other. So there is no real, this is on the other side, the mental side. The other was physical. So the Vedantins, the Upanishad said, so which is reality? So that which is relative cannot be real. But there is a witness to all this. That witness is real. That which is conscious of this or that, right or wrong, this consciousness is the reality, the Sat, as opposed to what we think is real. And that reality is our true essence. This is what Vedanta is all about. And when you touch that, you have moved from all relative realities to something that is absolute. Sat. And if there is a truth like that, what kind of truth is it? Is it material? Is it inanimate? It's conscious. The Upanishad says that Sat, the reality, is also in essence conscious. It's a conscious entity and not a physical object. And that conscious entity, therefore, is called Chit. That which is conscious, which is aware, that is Chit. And does it have any quality? The Upanishads say yes, it is one supreme quality, and that is bliss, Ananda. And it is this happiness that we seek in daily life, thinking that it can be found outside. It can be found when you turn within. And therefore, even those who say we are not looking for the Supreme or God or the reality, they are actually looking for it. How? Because we are all seeking happiness in some way. The essence of that reality is happiness. Not ordinary happiness, but happiness that has no end to it. Well, it's nice to have a little bit of happiness in this world. I love to eat dosa, so that's okay. But I shouldn't think that is the ultimate happiness. There's something more than that. So when that is touched, then that reality is defined in Vedanta as Satchitananda. Satchitananda. There was a great weaver saint in Banaras, in Varanasi, called Kabir Das. In a very beautiful and simple way, he has described this, what we discussed just now, in so many words. Very simply, he said that we are like the musk deer. You know, if you go to the Himalayas near Uttarkashi and Upper Himalayas, there's a particular kind of deer which is called a musk deer. In Hindi it's called Kasturi Mriga. In Sanskrit it's called Kasturi Mriga, which means a musk deer. You know, the musk which is used in perfumes and so on. Now, this deer has a little pouch under its belly where in certain seasons musk is produced. Musk. And then there's a beautiful fragrance in the air. Musk. The poor deer, D-E-A-R here, doesn't know the source of this fragrance. It can smell the fragrance. And it goes around looking for the source of the fragrance everywhere in the forest, poking its snout into thorny bushes and bleeding, but not knowing the source, not knowing that this fragrance is coming from my own belly button. Kabir Das said beautifully, this is the state of us human beings. Look in and you find your musk. And we think it's coming from outside. It's actually coming from inside. So, this is in a sense, when you say, I want to meditate from Vedantic terms and yogic terms, what we are trying to do is to move into this essence which is in us. It's not far from us. You don't have to search for it in the Himalayas. Well, I did a foolish thing, of course. I don't know if it's foolish, but you don't have to run to the Himalayas to look for it. It's right here with you. Now, I don't think there's any better liberating message than the Upanishadic message which says your freedom, your joy, your completeness, your fulfillment lies inside you. You don't have to go anywhere else. So some people meditate to find that. And I think among the meditators, those who meditate to find that reality have moved forward, have become more mature than others who meditate for different reasons like stress relief, which is okay. I mean, you need to relieve yourself of stress. To meditate and relieve yourself of stress is better than lining up in the bar to release your stress. Because finally, it depends on your state of mind. It also depends on your liver. Somebody asked this question, is life worth living? Somebody said, depends on the liver. So we say, is life worth living? It depends on the heart. Now, when I say heart, I'm not talking about the organ that pumps blood. The word we usually use, oh, he's a heartless guy, or he's a man of heart. That thing, which is deep inside us. And that is what we seek. Whichever way we go, we finally have to touch that reality. 1,000 years ago, there was a yogi who was wandering in Jerusalem instead of in the Himalayas. And I think he had 1 or 2 robes and nothing more. A perfect example of what in India we call a parivrajak, a wandering saint, a wandering sadhu. Except that instead of the Himalayas or Varanasi, he was wandering in Jerusalem. And in his own words, he said, the foxes have dens and the snakes have holes, but the Son of Man knows not where to lay his head. No home. Today, if you say homeless, it's a bad word, not a good word. But in India, there were these spiritual wanderers who had no real home, because the whole world was their home. It's not one particular location. The Gita calls it aniketa, one who has no house. And this person, this parivrajak, said something very interesting, which is connected to what we were discussing just now. He said, therefore, lay treasures in your heart where thieves do not break in and steal. Any other treasure, it's possible that some thieves can break in and steal, but the treasure in your heart, no one can break in and steal. And tomorrow's subject, which we're going to discuss, how to meditate, is connected to also one of the sayings of this great yogi, who said, therefore, if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But tomorrow, when we look at the practicalities of meditation, and then we are going to discuss if we really have a single eye, which will fill our whole body with light. We call it the ajna. We call it the trinetra, the third eye. If you see a picture of Shiva, Shiva is in the pantheon of Indian gods. We have 33 crores of gods. Everything is worshipped as God. That's something very interesting. A tree, a rock, because that reality which pervades everything pervades everywhere. So you can call anything divinity. So we have, as a metaphor, we say 33 crores, but everything is real. In its true essence is God, reality. So, let me make it clear. We'll discuss this in detail tomorrow, but you cannot open the third eye by hitting a nail into your forehead, no. Nor through drilling a hole in your skull. I know there are some people who think this is possible, no. It means basically opening the eye of wisdom, but of course it has a certain... So when you see one of the gods of the Hindu pantheon called Shiva, of the major Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwar, Shiva is a very popular depiction of the Supreme Reality, who incidentally is also called the destroyer and yet called the auspicious one. The word Shiva means auspicious. The other word used for Shiva, Rudra, means destroyer. So if you don't destroy the old, you don't get anything new. I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about images. Without destroying old images, you cannot find something new. You can't be creative. So nobody has really seen Shiva as a photograph or anything of the kind, but we have paintings where people depict Shiva as sitting like a yogi with folded legs. Now, and meditating with eyes closed. So people ask, who is God meditating on? The fact is that Shiva is the symbol of a yogi, the supreme yogi, whose physical eyes are closed so that his third eye is open. You see in the picture, they draw a little eye here. So, there are different reasons why people meditate, and the ultimate reason for meditation is to find your true essence, which is your true self, which is in you, which is not different from anybody else's self. Actually, in its full bloom, everyone's self is the same and connected to each other. Very often philosophers, even political philosophers, have thought about equality. Whole philosophies have been written on it. I come from the south of India, where even when you go to college, you see a lot of red flags out there. So we go through, we are exposed to a little bit of Marxist literature also. So I've read the Das Kapital myself, which is Karl Marx's important work, and many others. Now the idea is, some of these philosophers have aimed at equality, and they've presented a utopia of economic equality, which has never worked anywhere in the world. It was a good idea, of course, but it has not worked anywhere in the world. We know that. However, we believe that there is something called spiritual equality, which works many a time. Which means, physically, all of us are not made equal. We're unequal by birth, by genetics, by various reasons, by our upbringing. We can't be. When I say equal, I mean we are not the same, we're different. However, there's one sense we are the same, and that is every human, every living being in the depths of one's heart has a spark of the divine. We are equal, that way. Whether the other person realizes it or not, if I know it, then I see the divinity in others. So there is nobody who is not divine, whether one has discovered it or not. That's a different story. So the whole movement of the higher level of meditation is to discover this spiritual identity in the depths of our consciousness, in the core of our consciousness. If you have done that, then you really rest in peace. Before dying. And there's no point in resting in peace after you're laid to rest. Nobody knows whether you're conscious even. Can we do that while we are still alive? And the rishis have answered, the yogis have said, yes, this is possible. So, this is why we meditate. Ultimately to find our true essence. Ultimately to find the supreme peace which we look for in the outside world. Ultimately to find our true identity, which is not different from the divine. And therefore to see everybody as divine in some way, in true essence. This is why we in the higher levels meditate. In the lesser levels we meditate to keep our mind healthy, the body healthy, not get stressed up with things, to be more efficient. A person who meditates is certainly more efficient than a person who does not, because it sharpens the mind and frees it from distractions. Once you learn one pointed attention, you can apply it to anything, this world or that, doesn't matter. So, Even if you don't want to find the ultimate truth or Sat, it's a good idea to start some kind of meditation so that you learn how to gather your energies, free the mind from distractions and move forward. Perhaps later on you'd say, I have a beautiful weapon now, let me apply it for something better. Or let's not use the word weapon, it brings war into your mind. But I have an instrument of perception, the mind, which I can direct towards the higher realities. It can come later, but there's no harm in starting with small things. Rome was not built in a day. You have to be patient. I would say Varanasi was not built in a day. It's older than Rome. So, this is my message today. It's 6 o'clock. I've been yapping for 1 hour now. Almost 5 minutes. So, we are open to questions. I can't say that I can answer all your questions because until I hear the questions, I don't know if I know the answers. So, but before that, being a human being, I have some compulsions. So give me 2 minutes, I go to the washroom and come back. Thank you.